Lord Jesus, thank you so much for Tuesday night Bible study on Thursday night here at RU, because we need your help so bad.
So bad.
And pray, Father, that as we teach, that the Holy Spirit of God would guide and direct. I'm leaning heavily on you like I always do. And we just pray, Father, for your guidance. Pray, Father, that you would open up hearts. Pray, Father, that you would reveal the treasures that are hid in this chapter to your people. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Are we still in Genesis?
We're in chapter 47. We've only got 3 more chapters to go.
That's a yes, we're still in Genesis.
That's a yes, we're still in Genesis. Now, if you'll remember...
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
It's a good one.
We're coming up on a year.
If you guys remember, the folks had come down out of the land of Canaan, crossed over Mount Sinai in their wagons, and they arrive here in the land of Goshen. Okay, in what we call Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt is down here, which is backwards, but it's a very fertile area. And let me back up just a smidge into chapter 46. We'll start at verse 30. And Israel said unto Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. Joseph said unto his brethren and unto his father's house. He gathered them all around, and he's going to help them as they appear before Pharaoh. And so he says, I will go up and show Pharaoh and say unto him, My brethren and my father's house, which were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. And the men are shepherds, for their trade hath been to feed cattle, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. And it shall come to pass, when Pharaoh shall call you and shall say, What is your occupation? That ye shall say, Thy servant's trade hath been about cattle from our youth even until now, both we and also our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians. And we ended last week with the idea that you've got to realize that when people come into the land of Egypt, if they're strong men, they might end up in the army. Or they might Or they might end up working in the field of Pharaoh.
Building pyramids.
Building pyramids or temples or fixing streets or whatever.
Yeah.
So he wanted the Egyptian Pharaoh to realize that these are not people that we want to have around. And so he tells them there is a common court a procedure where you're going to approach Pharaoh. Pharaoh's going to ask you what your occupation is. It's a standard procedure. You're going to say, we're shepherds. Oh my goodness, we're shepherds. We love sheep. Sheep are the bestest. And he's going to be, yeah, I don't think I want these people around me. Yeah, you can go stay in the land of Goshen.
And it's not that Pharaoh hates them or anything like that. It's just that he doesn't want his own reputation sullied by saying that I've got a bunch of shepherds.
Yeah.
He needs you.
Yeah, because the shepherds and...
They don't like him.
Shepherds and sheep are an abomination to the Egyptians. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So having said that, we are going to read down to verse... Let's read down to verse 10. Chapter 47. Then Joseph came and told Pharaoh and said, My father and my brethren and their flocks... flocks, that's little things, and their herds and all that they have are come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen. Now remember, back in 46, Pharaoh had said, bring them down and take some wagons and put them in the land of Goshen. So this is not unexpected. Now watch what Joseph does in verse 2. He's always thinking that.
Always.
And he says, and he took some of his brethren, even 5 men, and presented them unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, and we're going to get to why there was 5 in a minute. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, What is your occupation? And they said unto Pharaoh, Thy servants are shepherds. both we and also our fathers.
Bah.
And Joseph is going, yeah. They said moreover unto Pharaoh, for to sojourn in the land are we come, for thy servants have no pasture for their flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore, we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee. The land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell. And if thou knowest any men of activity among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. And Joseph brought in Jacob his father, and set him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, how old art thou? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil. Hi, guys. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh, and went out from before Pharaoh. Now, I'm going to save this one for a second here. Save that one for a second. All right. So good. It's really, we're going to do a lot of word studies today, which I love. So let me back up to verse 1. So then Joseph came and told Pharaoh. So imagine the court. There's Pharaoh, and he's surrounded by his servants. Joseph doesn't just rush in. It says Joseph came and he talks to Pharaoh. It's almost like a one-on-one thing. And he says, my father and my brethren and their flocks and herds and all they have are come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they're in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh's like, okay. And that says, and he took some of his brethren, even 5 men, and presented them unto Pharaoh. Now it says some of his brethren, even 5 men. The word for the day, I guess I will go this in order. The word for the day for this chapter is end.
E-N-D.
End.
End. I didn't see end.
It's right there. And he took some of his brethren, even 5 men, and presented them unto Pharaoh.
End.
End.
I missed it.
You missed it again. Okay. So the word some is end.
Oh, some.
Well, end.
Some end?
End.
Okay.
All right. And I've got pictures and stuff in here.
I love pictures.
All right. So the word some is katsa. It means the far end, the extremity. Look at 1 Corinthians 12:31.
How about 1 Kings?
Whatever this says.
12. That one.
1 Kings 12:31.
Okay, ready?
Katsa.
Katsa.
The far end, the extremity.
And he made an house of high places, and made priests of the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi.
The lowest. So when this says he took some of his brethren, he took the lowest of his brethren.
He took the ones that smelled and looked like shepherds.
He took the bad ones.
Yeah. Oh, you don't clean up well.
Oh, I can't bring Reuben. He's got a little bit of class to him, and he's handsome like Mom, or whatever. Or Benjamin. You can't bring Benjamin because he looked good.
No, it's got to be Simeon again.
You got to be Simeon again. So the word is end, and it means the extreme one, the extreme, and that's why he brings only 5. The whole purpose of this, it's a show before Pharaoh, so that Pharaoh doesn't want these guys anywhere around the palace.
These guys got open acne. They
haven't taken it. They've just done this 2 weeks of traveling, and they haven't bathed yet.
Yeah,
and he's like, you'll do fine.
Yeah,
come with me.
Give me the guy with the scar on the cheek, the rickets.
And we'll get to the.
So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get to the other ends as we go through this. And it says, and he took some of his brethren, the end of his brethren, the low end of his brethren, even 5 men, and presented them unto Pharaoh. Of course, 5 in the Bible is either the number of death or the number of grace. And so since he's seeking grace, there's kind of a thing there. But also with the Egyptians, remember Benjamin had 5 times the mess that his brothers did. 5 seems to be a number that is that the Egyptians like to use, and so Joseph was being wise in bringing 5.
5.
All right, and the 5 men. Now, of all the times that the word men has occurred, I've never done a word study on it.
Because it means men.
Because it means men. So this is the word for men in Hebrew.
Blech.
And of course they read this way, and it's pronounced Anosh, Anosh, and it looks like this, and it's man. This one, and this one, these words here is the root word, and it means sick or decrepit, and it's the idea that men are mortal.
Oh.
Isn't that cool?
And and I could see that because a lot in some places they're called mortals.
Yeah.
That's a noun.
We refer to the mortal men and everything.
Mortal men.
And so the word men comes from
more
this
stress
idea.
on the mortality part of it.
Yeah. Well, I think whenever they were originally coming up with letters, they looked around. They said, "What best describes people?" And
there's a lot of them, and they die.
And they said, "We're gonna use the word that is sick as our root word."
Sin sick, maybe.
Yes, sin sick. Now watch this. This is also really cool. Verse 3.
Okay.
And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, "What is your occupation?" Let me try to get.
I'm currently unemployed.
I'm currently unemployed. And they said unto him, "Thy servants are shepherds." Just like we almost always, we meet somebody new. Hey, so where do you work?
Yeah. What do you do?
Where do you work? What do you do? It's a very common thing. It helps us to understand that person a lot. If they say, "Oh, I'm a
nuclear physicist,"
we have a different mindset than if they're a janitor or something.
Yep.
Or if they say, "I manage 1,500 people."
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. So you get a little bit different view on it.
I'm a day trader on Wall Street.
So the word occupation, can you get this one here?
Oh,
The word occupation in the Hebrew is measa. It looks like this. Of course, you read it backwards. Measa. And it's the ocean word, the word for waters, an eyeball, a thorn, and hey, which turns it into like a noun.
That's a thorn.
This is called a thorn.
Okay. TV antenna.
A TV antenna. It's a thorn.
Okay.
We're going to see it a couple times. And so the word for work is actually a thorn plus the eye whenever you see thorns. Genesis chapter 3, verse 17 and 18.
And unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake, in sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field.
In the sweat of thy brow shalt thou eat bread till thou return unto the ground.
That was 19.
Yeah. I know. So the word occupation actually comes from the word for seeing thorns, which is work.
I gotta tell you, that's so straight on.
That is the coolest thing ever.
Because if it wasn't a thorn in the eye, it wouldn't be work.
That's right. Every time I go to work, I'm like, I gotta go to work.
Like the one guy says, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
That's right.
Most of us don't.
Yeah, we work too much.
No, we have a thorn in the eye.
So he says, Thy servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. Verse 4. They said moreover unto Pharaoh, for to sojourn. Now this is interesting. The word sojourn, what does that mean?
To me, to sojourn would mean a temporary living. It's like you're living in my house right now. You're sojourning.
I'm sojourning. It's not a prominent thing.
It's like a camp out, but longer.
Sometimes it feels prominent, but it's not supposed to be prominent.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a sojourn.
Well, whenever the Lord had, and I'm doing this off the cuff here, when the Lord had said to Abraham that you were going to, it was back in 18, I know it was, 17, 18. All right, in verse 5,
If you guys ever get a chance, just bump into him at church and take his Bible and look through Genesis.
It's covered with notes and scribbles and lines and colors. And
He just takes the pencil and draws from here over to here.
I do. All right. So the Lord had said to Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward they shall come out a great nation. It's almost like Abraham forgot to tell these guys, when you eventually go down into
Egypt, it's going to be a sojourn that lasts a long time.
It's going to be because they're still thinking
famine.
They're still thinking, we're going to be here for a year or two until the famine's
No.
over.
He said there's going to be 5 more years of famine.
Oh, I know.
Right. So they're thinking 5 years, maybe 6, we're done, we're out.
Yeah.
So don't get too comfy.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, that's kind of what happens. You just kind of get comfy.
Yeah, they got comfy.
They're living in Goshen.
Yeah.
It means draw near.
For the famine is sore in the land. Now, I like the word sore. Get this one. The word sore has the idea of it's very pressing on them, right? The word is kebed, and in Exodus 7:14,
and the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened; he refuses to let the people go.
So Pharaoh's heart is sore. So this kind of gives you an idea. Whenever it says that the famine was sore in the land, it was like an enemy that was hardened against them. It was not going to let go. It was not going to give an inch. It just kept buffeting them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really...
It torments.
And I think it's really cool how the famine that is sore drives them into Egypt, and then the Pharaoh's heart that is sore drives them out of Egypt.
Oh, that's tremendous.
Yeah, that's tremendous. All right. Let's see what he says.
Like a little kid.
I know, I do. I get excited. Now, therefore, we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen.
Which, by the way, is funny because, Pharaoh's the one who said, go get your dad. He doesn't remember that conversation. He's so old.
He's so busy.
He's so old and so busy. They're like, remember? We came down here to live?
It was like,
Joseph?
It was like 2 weeks ago.
Joseph's brethren?
With wagons.
Oh, yeah, now I remember. Yeah, stay in Goshen. We don't want nothing to do with you here.
Now, here's what's interesting. Here's what's interesting.
I never want to see you again.
Now, here's what's interesting, too, is Pharaoh said unto his brethren, he looks right at the boys, right? These 5 scraggly guys, and he says, what is your occupation? And they tell him...
Stinky shepherds.
And he does this. And Pharaoh spake unto Joseph. Because Joseph is their representative. And so, and that's the way that affairs of state would work, would be Pharaoh would speak through Joseph as his intermediary. Joseph was the mouth of Pharaoh. And so he turns to Joseph and he says, thy father and thy brethren, ignore them. Mm-hmm. Thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee. The land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and brethren to dwell. He just keeps talking like they're not even standing there. And all the yous are singular. Thy, thee, though. He says...
He's not being rude. He's being royal.
He's being royal. In the land of Goshen, let them dwell. And then he said, I love this last part. And if thou knowest any men of activity among them...
He's looking at those some 5.
Then make them rulers over my cattle. He says, hey, if any of them are actually really good at this cattle thing, give them a job working for me. Now, that is not what Joseph wants to do. He wants to keep them far from Pharaoh so...
They don't accidentally offend.
Well, that's a good point.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere near Pharaoh, because if you accidentally did something wrong, Pharaoh's the kind of guy off with your head.
Yeah, because they're visitors and they're living on his dime and the whole
deal.
Shepherds. And they're shepherds and everything else. Now, I thought this was cool. We've come across the word rulers before. If you remember, Potiphar was captain of the guard.
Yes.
And the Hebrew word for captain is sar, and he was sar tabith. He was captain of the guard. And then there was the keeper of the prison. And the word keeper is sar. And prison was the Baeth Kohar, the roundhouse. He was the keeper of the roundhouse.
Yes.
Then there was the chief of the butlers, and he was Sar Shakah. And the chief of the bakers, Sar Afah. Okay, so these are all the Sars we've got so far. Sar Tabath, Sar Baeth Kohar, Sar Shaka, and Sar Apha. And now he says, if any of them are men of activity among you, then make them rulers over my cattle. Sar Miknah, Captain Cow. Make them the cow captain. Keeper of the cows.
And yet at the same time, think how many millions of cows are probably
In Egypt.
that Pharaoh personally has.
And he's very impressed with Joseph.
He's also seen the blessing that follows Joseph, and he's maybe thinking, maybe I can get a little bit of that more coming my way.
There you go. Oh my goodness. Verse
Ruling. Wait a minute. When you rule cattle, what do you do with them? What does that mean?
They just bow before you and say, eat more chicken. The land of Egypt is before thee in the best of the land. The word best there is actually a first occurrence.
Oh.
The best. It only occurs 6 times in the Bible, and I'm not going to go into it. But the best before thee. Make thy father and brethren to dwell. Oh, this was cool. When he says, make thy father and thy brethren, make thy father and brethren to dwell.
Are we still in audio video link because we just had a stagger on our end?
We're moving really weird.
I know, the video's doing something funny. If you guys see everything working well, let us know.
It looks good. It sounds good. We need a feedback.
Okay, now they're hearing it. I don't know what's happened. It's not us.
We need to know if the video is okay. Looks okay.
Looks okay. If it's not, they'll let us know, right? We're still talking down there.
Mm-hmm. What did she say? 20 minutes ago.
It's okay. All right, we're going to keep moving.
All right, good. All right. Where was I at?
You should see us. We've got a great big podcast light, the fancy microphone,
Cell phone,
all sorts of doodads over here.
wires everywhere.
It's too much.
So he says, in the best of the land, make thy father and brethren to dwell. And I've said before how if you take a word and you repeat it, it adds emphasis. Like, verily, verily, I say unto you.
Yes.
So here the Hebrew is actually yashab, thy father and brethren yashab, let them yashab. So he's actually saying to dwell, make thy father and brethren to dwell in the land of Goshen, let them dwell. So he's being very specific and very, very
you don't have a choice.
Emphatic. Let them, no, he's just saying, he's welcoming them. He's welcoming them.
Oh, okay.
Rulers over my cattle, I already did that. Okay, verse 7. So he gets the brothers out, or maybe the brothers are still in there, but it looks like it's a second meeting. He gets the brothers out. It says, and Joseph brought in Jacob his father and set him before Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Now that kind of gives us the idea that Jacob is not moving on his own so well.
No, they brought in a chair for him. He's not going to stand like the brothers.
Yeah, he's 130 years old.
The fact that he even got there.
By the end of the chapter, we know that he's blind. So he's at least at this point he's having a hard time seeing, and so.
And yet at the same time, he's having a giddy good time because Joseph's alive. He's in Egypt.
Oh yeah.
He just made the biggest move of a long time.
Yeah. And Joseph brought in Jacob his father and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Hebrews 7:7. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, how old art thou? Which is a nice, I mean, it's, the Bible says that the rich answereth roughly. He gets straight to the point. How old are you, old man? How old are, because he's never.
Well, it's not like he's going to say, what's your job?
The life expectancy of your average person in Egypt at this time, men 34, women 30.
Whoa.
King Tut. Remember King Tut? 18-year-old king when he was dead and buried in the sarcophagus.
Wow.
The guy who put these statistics together had looked at 257 skeletons from about 1700 to 1500 BC, and he said they don't live a long time. Now there are some records that the occasional individual would live very long, especially in the elite, like in Pharaoh's court or whatever.
Sure.
And 27 times in the literature of Egypt, it talks about reaching up into the hundreds, possibly 110 years old. Nobody hits 130. Nobody. What does it say there in Hebrews 7:7?
We know that Shem did, though. Shem, Ham, and Japheth, they came off the ark.
Yeah.
And there are non-biblical sources of Shem hanging out in Egypt, and he lived for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
600 years.
900s.
Yeah. Who are we looking for? 7:7?
7:7.
Hebrews 7:7, without all contradiction, the less is blessed of the better.
Less is blessed of the better, and the Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And it's really cool that he does this, that he blesses Pharaoh. And it says, and Pharaoh said unto Jacob after the blessing, how old art thou? The actual phrase in Hebrew I really like. It's ma, which is how many, or chai, which is life, yom, which is days, and this S-H-A-N-E-H, shana or shana, however you say it, is years. Art thou. So what he's saying is, how many are the days of the years of your life? Which
Translates to how old are you?
Which translates to how old are you? But it also explains when Jacob responds in verse 9, and Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, have the years of my life been, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage.
Oh,
Isn't that cool?
that's super cool.
I like that stuff.
Yeah.
And let's look, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh. Pharaoh got blessed twice by Jacob. It's a good day to be Pharaoh. That's all I'm saying. Am I right? Yes, I'm right.
Yeah, what a neat meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is older than dirt.
You can't.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
We don't know how old Pharaoh was. I always picture Pharaoh's, elderly, but he may not be. He could be a young.
Could be 40s,
50s. Yeah, he's just
could be a strapping young 53.
Yeah, that's neat.
We don't know.
It's neat.
All right, so anytime somebody gives us an age, I like to put a few more ages out there. So Jacob is 130.
Yeah.
And remember, he had Joseph when he was 91, which means that Joseph is currently 39. He had started being the second in command to Pharaoh when he was 30. He had 7 years of plenty, and then he had 2 years of famine, and so that's right on target. Reuben, 7 years older, would be 46. Benjamin, who is 13 years younger than Joseph, would be 26, even though he's got 10 sons under his belt. And looking at the 430-year period from Genesis 12, the promise being made unto Abraham to the giving of the law, the covenant to the law, is 430 years. We're at the halfway mark, 215 years in, which is really cool to me. Verse 11. Let's read from 11, just 11 and 12 real quick. And Joseph placed his father and his brethren and gave them possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren and all his father's household with bread according to their families. We're going to spend a couple of seconds on Ramses. Ramses is the son of the sun. Isn't that a cool, interesting thingy? Ramses. Let's look at Exodus 1:11. Can you get this last one? this here, the land of Ramses is really interesting. We're gonna.
So has Ramses showed up yet, or is this a Moses reference backward?
This is a Moses reference backward.
Okay. So that means that, Moses lived, a couple hundred years after this event. They've come out of Egypt, but now just so that the Moses' current audience understands what we're talking about, he uses current or recent to them words.
Yeah. So Exodus 1:11 says, talking about, therefore they did set over them taskmasters whenever the Israelites became slaves in the future, to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses.
Yes.
So even though it says that they're living in the land of Ramses, it's not called the land of Ramses yet because we haven't built Ramses yet. They won't actually build it for about 150 years.
Yeah, about 150 years.
About 150 years. And then in Exodus 12:37, and the reason I wanted to park on this for a minute, 12:37 it says, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men besides children. And then yours says, Numbers 33:3.
So this is during the Exodus.
Well, this is during the Exodus too. This is Exodus.
Okay. And they departed from Ramses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month, on the morrow, after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with an high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians.
So what we see there is that they come down into the land of Goshen. When they're in the land of Goshen, also known as the land of Ramses, Pharaoh, this Pharaoh dies. There arises another Pharaoh who doesn't know Joseph. He says, holy smokes, they're multiplying like rabbits.
Yeah.
We don't want them to rise up and take over like those Hyksos fellas did. We're going to make them slaves, and we're going to put them to work. Wonder what we could put them to work building. Maybe a city in the land of Goshen, since they're already there. So now by the time we get to Exodus 12, which is recorded in Numbers 33, as they're leaving Egypt, they leave from the city of Ramses, which I thought was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
That just comparing spiritual things with spiritual things.
Yeah.
Where was I at?
I don't know.
All right.
47:11.
No. We already did 47. Oh, yeah, 47:11. 47:12. And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren and all his father's household with bread, according to their families. Of course, the word nourished is sustained and fed, and that fulfills Joseph's promise back in 45:11 when he said, you come down and I'll nourish you.
I'll take care of you.
Yeah. The word for bread is lahem, like in Bethlehem.
House of bread.
House of bread. And when he says, and all his father's household with bread according to their families, it's cute because the word families is actually taf, T-A-P-H, which is the little ones, the children. So he says, I'm going to feed you literally with bread to the mouth of your children. Everybody from dad on down, he's going to take care of.
Yeah.
I just think it's sweet.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
well, what's weird to me is, like, does this mean, and we don't know, I don't think we know, that they're not, like, going into town and trading?
No, they're not doing that. He's feeding
He's
them.
literally keeping them out of Dodge.
Okay. So Nat is going to read...
Your job is to stay in Goshen and multiply.
Yes, Nat's going to read 13 to 26 here in a second. And as he does, we're going to see...
Oh, forgot to plug in the laptop.
He's going to go plug in the laptop while I keep talking. Don't you love this? We're in the
Too many wires.
We're in the dining room. All right. What we're going to see here as we go through this chapter, especially whenever this section that Nat's reading from verse 13 down to 26, is the Egyptians and the Israelites, they already don't like each other. We talked about how there was that mutual abomination But
oh yeah, you're an abomination. You're an abomination.
you're an abomination. You're an abomination. Well,
Christians have the same thing with the world today.
we're going to see the division grow because Joseph is going to be giving land to his family and free food to his family, while at the same time he's going to be taking the land from Egyptians and taking the money from the Egyptians and making them buy their food to the point where they have to sell their own selves and be slaves. Oh, but not those guys. Not the folks in Goshen.
Oh, I never thought of that.
Those guys are over there growing like weeds, and he just feeds them, and the rumor gets out. And it does not help between the Egyptian and the Israelite relationships, shall we say. Why don't you read 13?
Yeah, I'm sure that, before we do that, I'm sure that there are some other leaders within the Egyptian hierarchy who are also not paying that much.
Oh, I'm
because
sure
they're
there are.
part of the court.
And we're going to see when the priests aren't.
Yeah,
You'll
exactly.
see
And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle, if money fail. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of their herds, and for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. And when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, We will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live, and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to cities, from one end of the borders of Egypt even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not. For the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day, and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase, that ye shall give the 5th part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for the seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. I won it all.
You won it all.
Pharaoh's like,
all right.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah. All right, verse 12 again. And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren and all his father's household with bread, according to their families. And there was no bread in all the land. Wow. Yeah. So everybody else is starving. And having to, they bring their money, and of course when it says money, it means silver, the kesef. We've learned that word before. But let's look here. It says, and there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan, both of them, fainted by reason of the famine. And it's interesting because the Hebrew word there,
hang on a second. I've got all sorts of things saying it stopped. I think it was never where our battery went low. How we doing, everybody? Are we good? You are our eyes and ears on the ground.
We've got a 10-second lag, so we'll wait for you. How your day going?
It's outstanding.
Fantastic.
It's Thursday.
That's the day we normally do the Tuesday night Bible study.
It is. Oh, it's okay now.
All right.
All right. And I've turned down my screen brightness so that we can save power.
All right. It says, and all the land of Canaan, all the land of Egypt, and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And the word by fainted by reason of the famine, it says, it's got that word panim in there. And so, if I could say it literally, it's like the land fainted before the face of the famine. It's this anthropomorphic view that here comes the land of Egypt, here comes the land of Canaan, and they faint before the face of this great famine monster that's come up upon them. The word faint is actually the first occurrence of fainting in the Bible, and it means to languish, to be exhausted, to be weary, and the Hebrew word is, that's it, lahah, L-A-H-A-H-H, and it's the idea of a sigh, a weariness settling over you.
You can't go on.
You can't go on. It's to be exhausted without working, though.
And this is only number 3.
It's just wearing you down.
Year 3.
Year 3.
7 years.
Verse 14 says, and Joseph gathered up all the money, all the kesef, the silver that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. This also goes on to explain the influence that Egypt is going to have over the land of Canaan going forward throughout the rest of the book.
Yeah.
Because they're literally, everybody in Canaan is going to where the food is at. Joseph is not only keeping Canaan or Egypt alive, he's keeping all the surrounding city-states alive. They've got enough to make it, like with
it's going to be tight.
The dates and the honey and some of the roots and things, but they need that corn, the main part of their meal. And
it's going to be tight.
It's going to be tight. In verse 14 and 15,
I often find it interesting. So when Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dream and said, you're going to have 7 years of famine followed by 7 years of plenty. Joseph says,
or the other way around.
I'm sorry. Plenty and then famine. Put somebody really smart in charge of this. And he goes out and he starts building the cities and he starts collecting all the stuff. But it's not like they sent word to all the other countries around them and said, hey dudes, you're going to have 7 years of plenty followed by 7. They didn't let anybody else in the secret. This is literally...
Nobody saved up anything for themselves.
Because they didn't know it was coming. Only Pharaoh and Joseph and those that were like in the tight air, they knew. So they're leveraging their inside God knowledge in a
to make a buck,
kind of in a frightening way,
in a very frightening way.
I mean, they're keeping everybody alive, so yay, but
now
evil.
I had said before that the word "end" is the word of the day.
You did, and we've seen 2 ends so far.
And when the money failed, verse 15. So here's the rest of them. First, we had the extremities of the boys. It was the end of these lowly boys at the beginning.
Yep.
But now we've got failed and faileth in verse 15. Fail again in verse 16. Spent and not ought being left in verse 18. And then end in verse 21.
Wow.
So currently we're looking at...
It ain't nothing.
It says, and when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence, for the money faileth? And so I said, I wonder if those are the same 2 words. And of course they're not.
Huh.
So failed, the first one, is T-A-M-A-N, taman, which means to complete, to end. So it's when the money failed, when the ceasing of the money was complete. That's the idea. It came to an end. It was so complete in a bad sense, it was gone. So it came to an end. And then he says, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And it means to reach the extremity, to end.
There's nothing left.
Yeah. It's like we've stretched it out and we've stretched it out. The first one is like they stretched it out, it's done, it's gone, it's complete. And this one here really kind of shows you that how they just...
It's frightening.
It is. It's frightening.
Can you imagine being an Egyptian and this means that you've gone through all your couch cushions and got all the money. This means that you've gone through your kid's piggy bank and got all the money. You've emptied your savings and your 401k. You've emptied everything, and you can't put together money anymore at all.
And so they go to Joseph and they say, why should we die? And Joseph says in verse 16,
always has a plan.
Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. And the word cattle is that M-I-Q-N-E-H, Miknah. Remember the captain of the cows?
Captain of the cows.
And it's a word that means any purchasable domestic animal. Small, large, medium. It goes into horses, asses, sheep, oxen.
Rabbits.
It's purchasable domestic animals.
Anything you find on a farm.
Whatever you got. Chickens. Bring them in here and we'll go ahead and we'll do that. And so it says in verse 17, and again it says, if money fail. And that's again that word of reaches an extreme point that it's gone. So they brought their cattle unto Joseph. Can you imagine that scene? All over Egypt.
Miles of people. Miles. Just lined up in order.
Cow, cow, cow. All right, we got a set price. You get this much. You get this much for a bunny. And Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of their herds, and for the asses. And he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. This is the first occurrence of the word horses, so I looked it up.
Oh, okay.
It's again the thorn thing.
It's if you've ever ridden one.
No, it's not that. So a thorn has the idea of it goes around. So if you remember in the book of Job when it talks about how the sparks fly upward, it's the idea of thorn. Whenever you have a horse out in the middle of a field, he tends to dance and spin and play. And so the word thorn, and it's got the connective letter there, the tent peg, so it's sus. It means a twisting or turning in play. This is actually this is the same word that is used for the swallow bird, ignore my picture, and also for the word joy. To twist and dance in play. I love that. That's God's words for a horse.
And if you've ever seen a horse just jumping around in a field, yeah, that's joy.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, or a baby goat, same thing.
A baby goat.
Facebook is loaded with baby goats.
All right, so he gathers them up and he feeds the people again. All right, verse 18.
Okay.
When that year was ended, no more cattle, no more money, they came unto him the second year. Now, this is not the second year of the famine.
This is the second year
since Dad has been there, which means we're in year number 4. They came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. It's ended. That's that word end again. My Lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not out left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. And the word there for bodies is backs.
The labor. Yeah, we can work for it, but that's all we've got.
That's all we got. Verse 19.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that horrible? It
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? There they talk about the land dying, another anthropomorphism about how this famine is killing everything. By us.
Can you imagine?
They go there, can you imagine going with your family, please buy us. Buy us. Keep us alive, buy us. And our land for bread. And we and
It's not
our,
even buying you for money. It's not even buying you for steak. It's just buying you for a roll.
yeah, just keep
Biscuits.
Keep us alive one more day.
Wow.
Yeah. Buy us in our land for bread, and we. That's why the word end just echoes.
There's like
underneath these words.
there really is like. It's like you can, if you listen, you can hear the death knell, the big, the church bell donging behind.
This is the end.
Another year,
is the end.
Bong. Another year, bong. Egypt is dying.
365 days. 365 days. 365 days. For 7 years. And of course people did die. Babies died.
Aren't you glad there was
died.
Aren't you glad there was a Joseph in prison in Pharaoh's? Otherwise, no one would have seen this coming.
Nobody. Buy us in our land for bread, and we in our land will be servants unto Pharaoh. Now, this is setting up, basically, we would call it a serfdom, where they're going to work the land that belongs to the Lord in exchange for being able to live on it and eat. But they don't own anything. They own a little bit of the food that they raise. 20% is going to go to Pharaoh. They're going to get to keep 80%, but all the land and all the cattle and everything belongs to him.
He gets the best 20% too.
Oh yeah.
And then his sheriff of Nottingham, he gets his cut.
And give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. Because if they all die, that's it. That's it. Yeah. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, not for himself. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's. Not a single person escaped. And as for the people, he removed them from their land to cities. Yeah. From one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end there's two more ends, talking about the one end to the other end of Egypt. He moves them off the land. This is wise and cruel all at the same time. Because if I'm living if Nat is living here in his house and he owns this land, and then he goes to Pharaoh and he says, hey, I'm going to sell my land, but he's still living here.
It feels like it's mine still.
It still feels like it's his, and there's going to be a fight once food gets back to being plenty. And so Joseph, realizing that, takes this guy and puts him here, and this guy and puts him here, so they're no longer on their land, they're on land, and they're raising crops and fields, but he has completely broken that relationship to, this is the land that my dad cultivated. This is the land that my grandfather measured out.
And that's done. This was common in back in this time. The Babylonians did this. I mean, if you remember, like how they took Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they took them and they put them here. And when they conquered this country and pulled the people out of it. Conquered this country, pulled the people out of it, and they switched them so that you weren't where you felt comfortable. You weren't on home ground, so you would feel less likely.
Destroys patriotism and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
You don't put up a fight anymore, and that's what he was doing. He would bus them into work during the day, and then bus them back at night to their.
Super smart thing to do, but
super cruel.
Super
Joseph was super strategic,
but cold as ice. In some ways, I mean, this is.
Well, we don't know if it's him. We don't know if it's his plan or Pharaoh's plan.
This is him.
I think it's Joseph's plan. Joseph gets results.
Yes, that's what he does. He gets results. And he removed them.
Pity us if we ever have to go against Joseph, because he'll clean your clock and then take the clock.
Verse 22. Only the land of the priests.
That's why I say he's not a type of Jesus. Go ahead.
But he does.
I know.
He does take care of his own family while wiping out all the other people.
I know.
So, only the land of the priests bought he not. Why? For the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh.
Yeah, they were off limits.
And did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not. Wherefore they sold not their lands to him. Now this is interesting. This is a really cool one. The word priests is Cohen, like the last name Cohen.
That's Jewish priests, isn't it?
Priest, the Cohen, yeah.
Yeah.
It literally means one who is officiating. The first priest, the first person ever called a Cohen was Melchizedek, priest of the Most High God.
Yes.
This is really cool. I'm going to have you get this one ready. Psalm 61. Psalm 61, 10. So,
how about Isaiah? I'll get what you got, not what you wrote.
This one right here.
Yeah, that one.
All right. So this down here is the word for priest, but this is the root word that it comes from. It's a seed and mustache man, which we call an open palm of a hand. Because when a seed opens, the roots come out and it begins to provide a firm base. So this is the word for firm base of something, which is the root word for the root word of priest. Because now we take that same seed, same little open hand palm, we put hey in the middle of it, and we get two words, adorn and priest. Read Isaiah 61:10.
I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall be joyful in my God. For he hath clothed me with the garments of salvation. He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness. As a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels.
So when God decks himself and adorns himself with who? With what? He decks himself with ornaments and jewels. Who are the jewels, Nat?
We are.
We are. Revelation 1:6 describes us as being kings and priests unto God and our Father. Mm-hmm. So this word here is not just referring to the priests, it's referring to the adornments on the clothes of God. And that's what we are. When God decks out his clothes and he says, I'm going to put a jewel here and a jewel here and a jewel there, it's Christopher and Nathaniel, and he starts decking himself and making himself beautiful with us.
That's impressive.
I love that. That's one of the best things I've read in forever. Cohen, to adorn, a priest. But it's also, think of this, because it comes from the word base and the word to firm, your priest was the one who provided a solidity to the community because he provided them with the knowledge of God. He helped to build their house on a rock so they weren't on shifting sand. I just love that whole thing right there. Mm-hmm. Awesome. That was 22. Let me keep reading. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh.
Wow.
Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. Oh, I forgot one. Back in verse 22, where it says portion. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned to them.
A portion?
Yes, portion.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't want to do it yet. Let's keep going.
Oh, okay.
Verse 23, Behold, I brought you this day. Verse 24, And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, 20%, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed for the house, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. That's that word taf again.
Yeah.
And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day that Pharaoh should have the fifth part, except for the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. So the word for law in verse 26 and the word for portion in verse 22 are the same exact word. It's choke, C-H-O-Q. And here's the root. It's the sun coming up.
Yeah.
So we've got light is coming out from this point. So it's coming together is right here. But it's also a wall. So you've got a coming together and a wall of separation. And what can overcome a wall of separation and bring people together? This is the word for customs. Because our customs are what conquer this wall of separation and bring us together. And if I put this little joining note in here, the tent peg, all of a sudden it goes beyond this and it goes into something that is prescribed, like a law, a task, or a portion. And so what he's saying is, it's I don't know what he's saying.
It's a set amount, and it's established by law.
Yeah.
So it started off as a thing to do, and then eventually it became the law of the land.
There we go.
20%.
20%.
He's got a high tax rate. You don't get to have any land. You don't get to own anything.
No cattle. No bunnies.
There's nobody to buy them from because nobody else owns anything either. So imagine trying to come back from this. If you had an amazing year, you give the top 20% to Pharaoh, plus a little bit for the sheriff of Nottingham, because you know the tax collectors always get a little bit. So you got 75% left, and now that was a good year. So now you're going to try to feed the kids
and save a little.
And maybe you'll bump into an Ishmaelite who's selling a goat, and maybe you can buy a goat.
Yeah.
You know, so it's going to take a long time to come back and try to establish any kind of ownership in this place, because Joseph pillaged the land.
Yeah.
Joseph is a human locust. The first plague of Egypt.
It's just business. It's just business.
He's the first plague on Egypt's people.
All right. Now it ends. Verse 24 ends and it says, "For them of your household and for food for your little ones." I gotta do little ones.
Okay.
This is little ones is the word taf. I've mentioned it a couple times.
Yes.
Taf is a mouth and a basket.
It sure is.
Now they said in the dictionary thing, this word means brisk, as in a tripping gait, which is like little kids running around the house. They says, no, it isn't. It's because they're mouth baskets. Every child I know is nothing more than a mouth basket, and when they become teenagers, they're even bigger mouth baskets. A vacuum cleaner.
It's true.
It's true.
That's why we're laughing. It's true.
All right.
If you've ever had a teenage boy, you know.
It's a mouth.
They just eat a pizza.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and read 27 to 31. We'll get finished this up here.
"And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. And the time drew nigh that Israel must die. And he called his son Joseph, and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt, but I will lie with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as thou hast said. And he said, Swear unto me. And he sware unto him. And Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head.
Okay, we're going to cover a couple of things here. First off, verse 27 starts, And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they. That's the first time that Israel is a they. I thought that we had run into it back like in 27 or something, but I was wrong. This is actually the first time where it says Israel, they. This fulfills that what we already read in Genesis 15, where he said, and also that nation whom they wait. When he says, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that's not theirs, and shall serve them, and shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve, I will judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. But he's basically talking about how they're going to become this great people, this nation of people, and he mentions it several times. So this is the first time that we really see Israel
as a people,
the nation.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
Well, before it was a family.
It was a family.
But
we're up to 70 plus wives.
And then 17 years later, living in Goshen,
All right, so that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
We're 17 years later because now it says that Jacob is now 147. So when they first came in, Jacob was 130 and there was 5 years of famine left. When he reached 135, the famine stopped and they went back to normal life, trying to recover and everything else. Well, now Jacob is 147 years old.
So 12 more years.
Which means that Joseph is now 56. Ephraim and Manasseh are in their mid-20s already. Reuben is 63.
Wow.
And they've only got 48 years of freedom left before the king arises who knows not Joseph. Craziness. The chapter outline goes like this. First, they're going to settle in Goshen. Then you're going to deal with the 5 years of famine that were left, because we already had 2. And then there's Jacob's request to not bury me here in Egypt, but take my bones back home.
Yeah.
I do want to read one verse that is taken out of, they misplaced this one here a little bit. It's in Hebrews in chapter 11, verse 21. This is the Great Hall of Faith chapter.
Yes.
And it says in 21, by faith Jacob, when he was a-dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshiped, leaning upon the top of his staff. We haven't got to that part yet. That's going to be in chapter 48.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
So you'd be surprised how many people put it right here.
No, he's bowing upon the bed's head, not a staff.
The word is meta and mata.
Oh, so they say it's a scribal error.
It's a scribal error. Because when you
I know how commentators think too.
When you start reading chapter 48, it never mentions a staff, so they think, oh, it can't be there. Well, it doesn't mention his shoes either, but I'm sure he's wearing some. You know?
Everybody had a staff.
It doesn't mention he's wearing clothes, but I'm sure he was wearing them.
And we also know that he was decrepit.
Yes.
And blind. Partially, you know.
No, he's literally blind,
Yeah.
because in the next verse, in the next chapter, it says that, now the eyes of Israel were dim for age, so that he could not see. So when it says,
so he's got a staff, he's got him.
So he calls in Joseph, and he's like, you know, doing these. He's like, hey, my time's about ready.
Don't bury me here.
I'm going. He says, but yeah, don't bury me here. Take me home. Swear unto me.
And I think it's so sweet because it's after the famine. Jacob was always plugged in. He's already heard that Canaan's recovered.
Mm-hmm.
You know he has, because the dude's plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like,
that's a good point.
Don't bury me here.
Yeah. It's been 12 years since the famine. Canaan is starting to get back to growing things.
This has never been his home. This
No.
was a sojourn.
That's right. And when it says Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head,
Which is a weird statement.
it's not a headboard. They didn't have headboards. They had a mat laying on the floor. So what he's got is he's bowing himself down, but he's at the head of the bed, is all it's saying. It's not like he's grabbing hold of it and he's leaning on it like a headboard. It's not what it is. He's bowing himself over there upon the head of the bed.
It's like being on a carpet?
It's on a carpet. He's on a mat. He's on a mat in the corner. Now, because he's old, they may have put some fluff under it, but yeah.
I can picture that.
Yeah.
Wow. The end.
That's the first time in the Bible that the word bed is used.
First bed.
That's the first bed. Yeah.
First bedhead, too. I wake up in the morning with bedhead.
Bedhead. Oh, you guys. You know what? The thing that got me whenever I was looking at this, not only was the word end, but that this chapter 47 covers 17 years.
Yeah.
It's literally got Jacob going into Egypt at 130 and getting ready to die at 147. And
well, we're past the setup. Now we're just getting to the point.
yeah, it's like you get to the famine, and it's like skip, and we're done.
Yeah. Well, if you were Egyptian, you might want to spend more time here because this is about, all the things.
Losing
But it's
everything.
not about what Egypt went through. It's about what
what God is doing in this people.
In this people. Yeah. And he has to tell you this because Exodus is coming up, and you need to understand the background of how they got here. The stories, the little sidebars, they don't matter. What matters is this people came down.
And the entire famine was just a side thing. It's literally a minor thing because the point is that they got there.
Yeah. And think about it this way. This was a strategic move on God's part. By bringing them down here, they're protected in the land of Goshen, and they are going to multiply like rabbits. And when they leave, they're going to destroy Egypt, God's enemy.
And they're going to go out with the riches of Egypt.
Mm-hmm. He's preparing a nation. Don't ever lose sight of that. This is not about Joseph or Reuben or God's building a nation, and he's doing it strategically.
Yeah, so he's going to have to multiply the people, but whenever he sends them out, it says that they spoil the Egyptians. Yeah, I know. Which means that they spoil the Egyptians, which means that nation comes out with a bankroll. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, big treasury.
2 million people strong and loaded with Egypt's money.
Yeah. Why don't you pray?
Lord God, thank you for loving us, and thank you for for just the insight into the beginning of the nation of Israel. You dialed it in, you made it personable, you helped us to understand it, and in a way that we can relate to it. And yet at the same time, there's also there's evil afoot here. There's just some terrible things happening to people. I'm just amazed at Joseph. So anyway, thank you for the message. In Jesus' name, amen.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you.